And so Netty the Noodle here makes like lore videos and makes a full story. So if you ever want to know the lore of anything, his videos are dope. I actually like finding out, like learning about the lore of stuff. If you just get interested. We'll watch one now.
If you're keeping up with the new games, you've probably heard about a certain little MMO called Once Human. But unlike most MMOs, this one pushes the new weird genre to its limits, throwing you, the player, into a confusing, dreamlike, and, on the surface, oddly intriguing world. But what's the deal with this world? I mean, the lore isn't exactly throwing itself at you to easily understand, and even if you do get to it, is there even anything of substance? Today I'll be answering that question and more in an attempt to explain the full story of Once Human Season 1 in as succinct of a way as possible so that whether you play the game or not, you can understand everything important there is to know about this apocalyptic free-to-play survival MMO.
Right.
Who were you when you were once human, if at all? Why are these strange blocky things mining ore at the speed of light? And for the love of God, what is this bus doing? Welcome to the story of Once Human.
Right, so obviously like Netty like tells this lore behind the stories, and he obviously goes through the game entirely to try and learn every little detail of the lore, and then he kind of packages it together in a video form so you can learn the lore. I personally love these videos. I think they're sick. They're kind of loud. Loud in my ears.
Long before you show up, like over 20 years long before, humanity was seemingly fine.
Okay, Donald Trump.
Like the perfectly normal, insane political and economic systems of our modern day, except humanity was about to meet some new friends, seemingly not by choice. Rifts between space-time opened up, creating small portals between our world and a place called Rift Space.
I would love to watch more lore videos, yeah.
Horror pocket dimension, and through it came this weird substance called stardust, as well as these things called deviations. But what are deviations? Well, they are objects that are formed as a result of people's strong bonds or connections with said objects. In other words, if someone had an attachment to some metal toy that happened to look like this dude, and if both were affected by stardust, this could have been the potential to turn the two, or maybe just the object itself, into a deviation.
Has anyone actually played Once Human? I've played it. I've played quite a bit. Actually, not really quite a bit. Maybe like 10 hours or something. Which actually is quite a bit. Nerds don't think that's a lot, but that's a lot. Actually, let's just confirm how much I've actually played. No, actually, I can't because I didn't play from Steam. I had a different release version.
Kind of bringing it to life.
Let's forget that. No. It's really fun. If you like 7 Days to Die,
they have a sense of moral agency and thus
kinda
cannot be judged on their actions like a person could. Though if my definition for deviation isn't suitable, the game actually defines them as being the materialization of human thoughts caused by stardust decay. Further adding that whatever is on your mind, no matter what, a flying horse or a pig on a unicycle, once the stardust decays inside you, that horse or that pig will materialize in front of your very eyes. Behaviorally, deviations act however they want, in at times very unpredictable ways. Along with stardust decay creating deviations, there are also deviants, which the game constantly refers to the enemies by. Whether they're the human enemies like the vultures or the zombie-looking things, deviants, unlike deviations, just seem to be kind of generic, negatively affected human-like creatures that were...
This game reminds you of Power Water a little. Dude, I think this has a lot of inspiration from games like that. Because there's little cute deviations in the game literally work for you around your base. And then you have like the big dude like this. There's a lot of inspiration drawn from other things. Like clearly the big deviation on the screen right now, his name is he's like Siren Head. That's the name I was looking for. He's inspired by Mr. Siren Head. The game's fun, and you know what's kind of crazy? The game's free to play. You can download it on Steam for free. There's lots of like little like in-game things you can buy there.
And the overall effects of
and there's PvP, PvE servers. It's really cool.
For corporations to take notice, which, as it always does in these sci-fi stories, inevitably led to catastrophic events.
What's up, pineapples?
Rosetta was a research company that started examining deviations in stardust. They began to contain them, role-playing like they were some kind of Walmart SCP Foundation, but if it was made in China. Experiment after experiment led to Rosetta investing more and more into studying and containing these peculiar deviations and building their facilities on the continent of Nalcott, which is where you play on in Season 1 of the game. Rosetta eventually created monoliths to contain particularly dangerous deviations, which seem to manifest their own, also very dangerous creatures in pocket dimensions, sort of these rift spaces. For example, in-game, there are various deviation-related bosses called Great Ones or Transcendents that you fight at said monoliths. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Thousands of monoliths were actually built around the world, but for some reason, Nalcott was the place that deviations started to appear outside of containment, and the monoliths there were specifically more heavy-duty.
Thruwville to the north has detected at least 2 deviation incidents in the last month. The strange thing is, the stardust concentration is just the same as ever.
You hear that? You hear that? That voice there is like... Anyway, like, Nettie has like hired... Well, however he's done it, I actually know how he's done it. But I don't know if he knows, if people have told people. Anyway, like, he does like voice acting to help tell the story. That's so dope.
Still far below the safety threshold. So, if it's not that our equipment is malfunctioning, then the so-called safety threshold is bullshit. Is there a pattern to all this? Who are we kidding? Ourselves or everyone else? Thousands of monoliths have been operating all across the mainland for many years without a single deviation reported. Why is everything happening on Nalcott?
Rosetta was using these monoliths to seemingly sacrifice human lives to the Great Ones there to strengthen and test them. The extent to the sacrifices is not fully understood and kind of depends on the Great One itself, but it's observed in many
Oh,
other
great.
cutscenes for each of
Massive
the
company sacrificing humans.
Rosetta may have started out with good intentions, but it obviously turned into an extreme utilitarian corporation, and its effects on the environment by helping to spread pollution of stardust and use the deviations for their own means, including literally consuming the deviations to create ascended beings, meant that eventually all of this was going to have some really negative consequences, a kind of boiling point.
This is gonna make me want to play it.
And it did, because out of nowhere, an eldritch horror of arms, hands, and fingers entered our reality.
This gives me, doesn't this give you a little bit like Umbrella Corp vibes? If you know, you know.
And started fingering everything. This spaghetti monster here is called the Manibus, and it brought on an event known as Starfall. This Starfall was incomprehensibly bad for humans because stardust began massively proliferating and spreading over the planet, or at the very least, the continent of Nalcott. And wait, stardust kind of reminds me of another funny little substance in a not-so-distant survival game I can recall. Anyway, Starfall is basically an apocalypse-level event for humans.
We have Stardust in Ark? Not playing Once Human today, no. We're just checking out Nettie the Noodles video.
Humanity, and from there on, everything went to shit.
Element dust.
Real. The concentration of stardust near here
Right,
is increasing exponentially. I don't think Rosetta's research department can control the current situation. Or maybe they never wanted to.
People were infected, killed, and morphed into deviants. Deviations themselves manifested and wandered around, and Rosetta was just like... Oh no! But unlike that horrible ape from Planet of the Apes, which by the way was voiced by Greg Heffley's dad in Diary of a Wimpy Kid, these motherfuckers couldn't feel remorse because they went and...
Wow, you know when you reference someone's dad, but like that dad actor is the person that you grew up with, like as a kid, and then that makes you feel old.
Started developing artificial humans called metahumans, and I'm not talking about the Unreal Engine 5 ones.
I love you guys. I love you too. I love you too.
These are basically deviations that are like humans and have sentience, I guess.
Nah, yo, kind of cute.
They created 2 main ones that end up being pretty relevant characters in the story. LD-081, who was named Mary and given the surname of Ames after the head of the Gene Research Department, Marcus Ames. And then there was DVT-011, which was named Mitsuko. Mary was a dangerous thing. She killed all of her siblings in the human test tube and went on to be raised as a killing machine,
Lord.
basically. She entered the chain of command at Rosetta itself and then just at some point became chief of command of the entire continent of Nalcott, of the specific, like, elites of Rosetta. She also went on to basically lead the evolutionist movement, which had the goal of consuming deviations and becoming gods or evolved humans. Mitsuko, on the other hand,
She's a
was
super bitch.
quite a different story. She had a very unique
This
ability
chick's
to
cool. You
sense
meet her early in the game.
fluctuations in Stardust, and even to create deviations of her own. She was pretty special for being able to do this, and Rosetta wanted to exploit the shit out of her because, in gamer terms, they got pretty lucky with their Mr. MMO loot box and happened to create Mitsuko, which then meant they could use Mitsuko to create infinitely more mystery loot boxes. Kind of a win-win, right? Well, except for the human rights being subtracted from that equation. Oh yeah, and Mary wanted to feed Mitsuko
Saying
to her
game is
dad
so
so he
good?
could become a god with her, I guess. What? But with all of that said, not everyone at Rosetta was a bad person. Some people believed that metahumans deserved rights, and that deviations deserved to not be exploited as if they were nothing more than a pure resource to be extracted. One of these activists, you might say, was this guy named Victor Hammett. He cared for Mitsuko a lot, and after trying to reason with Rosetta and even Mary, which didn't really get him anywhere, he came up with a plan to fight back against the corporation. Victor encouraged Mitsuko to either create or sort of free the metahumans, which she was able to do because, well, she could create deviations, and metahumans seemed to at least be some form of deviations. So from there, Victor helped Mitsuko escape, and
You love
together
one's
they
human?
formed a group of metahumans called the Mayflies. Their whole shtick being small yet invincible, built to endure. Yet ironically, this was quite the opposite of what the Mayflies would ultimately become, with the Mayflies' goal being sort of to stop Rosetta. In order to do that, they wanted to kill the Great Ones that Rosetta had basically created in their super mega monoliths on Nalcott, because they were obviously really dangerous. I'm not entirely sure if they succeeded in doing this, considering that these Great Ones are still around in the game when you find them, but otherwise, the Mayflies weren't just a militia group. Their goals reached beyond just fighting Rosetta, because with Victor's help, they built new technology to harness and work alongside deviations without harming them, instead of, just using them as fuel.
Hey.
Came up with this cradle thing, taken straight out of Death Stranding, which Mayflies could wear to basically team up with deviations.
I remember that.
I feel like it's missing the baby that gives you a thumbs up, though. But the Mayflies also made use of securement facilities to keep deviations safe so that humans could...
This is the part that's kind of similar to Power World, where you can go and get certain deviations that will literally help you around your base and do different things. Like some can go and mine different materials or chop down wood, or I think even some can help you protect your base. Some also give you the player different abilities. So yeah, it's similar to Power World in that sense, I suppose. And I think Power World's going to inspire a lot of games, because obviously Power World had a lot of success. But just that, like, there's a lot of things from Power World that had really cool quality of life stuff that made survival crafting games more enjoyable.
live alongside them without getting cancer. The Mayflies were doing all this great stuff, but unfortunately that part about them being built to endure was only a little bit true, because eventually Mitsuko led the Mayflies into battle against a Rosetta base, and like 90% of them were killed. Then Victor turned into a crow for some reason.
I've seen the edge of the sky. I've met the lady with the wings. I've traveled to the nest, not by choice, but by crowbar. You don't want to.
I don't know what you're talking about, guys.
This is where we fast forward to 20 years after Starfall had first taken place. So when I said 99% of the Mayflies died, that was all of them except for you and this guy. He ran away. But well, you suffered some mortal wound with this strange knife plunge into your chest, and Rosetta took you and put you in your own little container. They studied you for a while until one of Mitsuko's lovely little deviations, this butterfly, showed up and
One thing I don't understand about games is for law's sake, they always make you the main character. But then in this game like this, that's completely online, there's a bunch of main characters running around, and all of you only came out of one little pod. It'd be really cool if law kind of made sense of why there's all of you there, not just you playing main character energy with a bunch of other main characters around. You know what I mean?
holy shit. Did the butterfly do that? You escape after this guy gets completely f***ed. And then this is where the game starts. We finally get to talk about where you come into all this. See, the idea was that, back in the day, you had fought alongside the other Mayflies.
I think law-wise, there's only one of you. It's just an online game. Yeah, no, that's just weird, isn't it?
Injured, captured, and literally lost all of your memories of your entire life before. Hence why you seem a bit confused when you finally escape. You get your hands on your cradle, which had been found next to your body by Rosetta however long ago, and
how convenient.
Victor just shows up, who now just goes by V. He kind of ambushes you and he's like, yo, we need to go find Mitsuko and like skedaddle out of this place. So you leave the facility, find Mitsuko, and start to piece together the story, which they throw at you like immediately.
And you're not a monster. In fact, you're very, very special.
After you start skipping the incessant dialogue between Mitsuko and V, who
I remember that was a lot.
the entire lore of the f***ing universe to you, you can finally play the game after killing a sort of tutorial great one. But before then, you get vored by this door, which V already told you is safe, so I don't even know why you're resisting it so much. And then you're basically on your way out of the interdimensional pocket pussy of a battle bus. And this is where your journey truly begins. That is an unhinged f***ing sentence. What the? And this is where your journey truly begins. Now, I want to make a disclaimer. While this isn't exactly lore, I'd like these videos to include useful information outside of the story, so just so you're aware, it took me almost as many hours as it took me to play through the entirety of Elden Ring and Shadow of the Erdtree just to get far enough in Once Human, which was like 99% through the first season, to get to where I was confident enough in all the evidence I had collected about the lore to make this video you're watching now. And I tell you this because I just want you to know what to expect with this game and how much of a time sink it is. I say that not in a negative way though, because when you fall out of the sky and decide where you want to start, holy shit does this game grip you harder than a church pastor who just spotted a minor. With that said, you
Wow, Nettie. Wow, Nettie. I didn't know you were that type of man. I didn't know you were that type of man. I'm here for it though.
scour over the decrepit and apocalyptic landscapes of Nalcott as you uncover what happened to this place, slowly piecing together the history of Rosetta, Starfall, the people, their governments, and your own story. You find settlements again and again that are basically each time connected in some way to the monoliths and the great ones inside of them. While the NPCs' mouths sometimes don't move while they're talking, you begrudgingly accept their quest to go enslave
Grand
the
Theft
great ones,
Auto.
and through these experiences you realize, holy shit, these cutscenes are actually pretty fucking cool. As you're breezing by these bosses like you're Chris Hansen telling them to have a seat,
Please have a seat.
they eventually start getting a little harder, and then suddenly
There's a couple of these jokes that are going way over my head because I don't know the references to them. I got the Chris Hansen one though, but there was a few like the Cyberpunk. I don't get it. You know, obviously the Element and the Stardust thing. I only got it because of you guys, but like there's a lot of these jokes that are just going straight over my head. I don't know.
it jumps to like impossible difficulty with this tree dude. But most important of all, for the purposes of this video, you might be asking, Ed, why don't you tell us about their lore? You know, I'd love to do that, but the cutscenes are about the only thing to do with these bosses that have any amount of substance, because the actual backstories of how these great ones were created and how usually the leader of the given settlement you're required to talk to was wronged or had some weird relation to said great ones have about as much depth as the script for the Borderlands movie. So I think it's best we just skip that part. They're really not important to the overall plot.
I'm just here to feed my dog.
What?
On the
The
other
back
hand,
rooms?
what is important to the plot is Mary, at least at first, because, see, when you first meet her, she actually pretends that she's a mayfly and not literally the fucking
Spoiler.
commander of the elite soldiers of Rosetta that could basically crush your balls faster than you could ask.
Oh my
if she
God.
really wanted to, but for some reason, Mary doesn't. She just puts up this act and eventually, surprise, surprise, betrays you. And instead of snapping your neck like a twig because she probably could easily, considering this bitch can fly, she just summons this grossly anticlimactic enemy to finish you off. What the fuck?
Now, a sac.
Okay, I'm gonna... his balls! After she totally owns you with this epic betrayal, you continue progressing in the game, grinding
You know
out
the
for
fu-
hours and
alright.
hours. Data, stop.
Come back in 3 minutes.
Until stumbling upon a Rosetta facility that gives you some lore dumps that you learn and read, or just close it immediately and play the game, because that's the only fun part. And eventually, hey, would you look at that? It's time to fight the final boss. You show up at this final dungeon place, and why is Mitsuko in the middle of the road? So you enter
She's
this
the final
facility,
boss!
fight through a bunch of guys, then you find this thing which is immune to damage and kind of just nonchalantly chases after you at the pace of a brisk walk. And you find out that this is actually a deviation minion thing that is being controlled by Mary's dad, Marcus Ames. And in order to stop this thing, you need to kill his body. Whoa. So you get to his body, he's just chilling here, and you just shoot him. This isn't the final boss, though. I mean, obviously, we're gonna go and fight Mary, of course, which is what the story's been leading up to this entire time. And
Wait, did anyone just realize?
And,
You know who that is? Professor X. Yep. Marvel is coming to this world. What up, Throttle? What up, Brad?
Just shoot him. This isn't the final boss, though. I mean, obviously, we're gonna go and fight Mary, of course, which is what the story's been leading up to this entire time. And oh, okay, she's just gonna walk into the door's closed.
Ooh, kind of. Ooh, sexy.
Why are her lips not moving? So instead of giving him a satisfying boss fight of Mary to conclude the main story of season 1, she kind of just villain monologues to you and then gets fingered by the thing I briefly mentioned way back when. The Manibus, which, if you don't recall, this is the sort of original entity that caused Starfall. See, the Manibus really, really likes these things called staroids. What are staroids?
Steroids.
I don't know, maybe some big old chunks of stardust? No clue, because it doesn't even have an item description. But my theory is that Rosetta, through everything they had done, attracted the Manibus through Rift Space, and he was like, oh, hey, there's staroids here. And he just started slurping them up. And then Rosetta was like, hello, good sir, we have a business opportunity we would like to share with you. And, okay, this theory is kind of ridiculous, but you know what I mean. Basically, the Manibus is here, and it's trying to end the world, and shit, I guess Mary wants to use it to become a god and, like, take over the world, and I'm gonna be honest, if this cutscene has taught me anything, it's that Mary's ass has more substance than this entire game's story.
No, man's got no bunda.
Ass. Booty. To conclude, what comes next? Will Season 2 be a new map? Will it be an expansion of the current one? What's gonna happen with the lore? Will it get better or will it get worse? We're only gonna know in time. But what I do know is that this game, while having a pretty poorly written and executed story, is a lot of fun. And this video doesn't really do it justice as a whole. While I can make fun of the game's attempt at a narrative all day, I assume as someone who honestly hasn't sunk that much time into MMOs overall, that once human having a lackluster story isn't exactly uncommon in this genre. MMOs are designed to create addicting and engaging gameplay loops, and having a compelling story that doesn't tick every single cliche sci-fi box is not central to said gameplay. But hey, maybe I'm being too hard on the game.
The dude got a fish on his back. Is that a fish?
Sci-fi box is not central to said gameplay.
Why is there a fish on his back?
Being too hard on the game. I want to know what you think. Leave your thoughts down below. This video took a ton of research, so please do click the subscribe button below for more videos where I explain the stories of your favorite games. Also, let me know what you think I should cover next. And as always, thanks for watching.
That was good. If you haven't been able to watch the entire thing there or whatnot, make sure you go check out Netty Noodle's channel. Go hit that subscribe button, like button, all those kind of things. Man makes pretty dope videos. Oh, look, it's showing that I'm live.